If you're going fishing on a boat and you don't know how to use one of these, you should. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ty here with 8 Times Up Outdoors. I am in the garage. I was doing some winter boat maintenance today, and I decided I was going to do my first lab video, which are just simple videos we do to teach you some of the basic fundamental things when you're going fishing. And today I'm going to be talking about this, the Canon downrigger. Now, if you are brand new and just getting one of these, this is going to be a great video for you to take a look and figure out how it works. The other thing this is great for is anybody that ever fishes on a boat. If someone has one of these, you will become their biggest hero if you know how to use one of these. Every year when we go fishing, if I take someone new fishing and they know how to use a downrigger, it is a game changer. It makes life so much easier when you have other people that can help you use these things. And in my opinion, on a boat, the downrigger is one of the most important tools you can use to catch more and bigger fish. So let's jump into what it takes to operate one of these downriggers. Okay, let's start with just going through the basic pieces that are a part of any downrigger. This here is a Canon downrigger. It is not an electric one or anything like that. Old school, hand crank, all of those kind of things. So let's go through those pieces. Your main component here is going to be the spool with the wire on it that allows you to drop it down. The downriggers also come with a weight, and then attached to that weight is some sort of clip. With that also, you're going to have the handle that operates as a brake as well, and then you have the rod holder up here that the rod goes in. This will be mounted typically off the back of a boat so that you can drop lines into the water at an exact and precise depth. So you can target fish in a very specific part of the water column, which is what makes it such a great tool when you're trolling on a boat. All right, so let's jump into the basics for how to use the Canon downrigger. I have an ice fishing rod in here just for demonstration purposes to give you a little bit of a visual of how this is going to work. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your rod that is set up for trolling. It is going to go into the rod holder. You are going to make sure, this is important, make sure the bail is open on your reel. You want that line to be able to come off that reel freely during this process. So you open up the bail, you're gonna let some line into the water. You want to let off, probably, we typically run anywhere from 15 to 30 feet of line behind the boat before we get to the clip. And so you're gonna just string off some line into the water. Then you're going to grab onto that line so you can hold a part of that line with about 30 feet of water, with about 30 feet of line going into the water. You then are going to take the clip and clip the line in between the 2 rubber pads on this clip. And I'll give you a close-up view of what the clip looks like now. All right, so here you go. Here is the Canon downrigger clip. You will have your line that goes through those 2 rubber pads there. Then this just closes down, and it has a few different settings for how hard you want that line to be held in there. Depending on what fish species you are targeting, that will change how much you want to clamp that line down. Also, depending on the speed you're trolling, that will also influence how tight you need to have that line held down to make sure it is only released when a fish hits it. So there is the downrigger clip. So once you have the line clipped between the 2 rubber pads and you have the tension set on it, then this is going to hang off the back of the boat. Your line is still in the water. You're going to place one hand on top of the spool. This is also important because once you release the brake system, that weight is going to want to fall into the water. And if you do not have your hand on the spool, there's a good chance you snap your line, everything comes unhooked, you could break your pole, all sorts of things can go wrong. So as soon as you get that clipped, before you release the brake, make sure you're holding on to the spool. To release the brake system, you're going to roll the handle backwards. This is going to loosen up the brake system. So now, if I release pressure on this spool, then the downrigger ball will start to fall, which you should see it probably drop off the frame there. And it'll drop into the water. On top of your downrigger, there's a counter. And this is your depth counter. And so when the ball hits the water, this depth counter should hit 0, because then you can track the number of feet you want to go down into the water, allowing you to target fish at that specific depth. So if you are marking fish at 40 feet of water and you want to try to target those fish, then you're going to make sure that your depth counter gets down to 40 feet. This all seems very obvious. There is some math involved if you want to get nerdy about it like we do, where depending on how fast you're going and the weight of the ball you're using, there is some blowback that happens. And so you may lose 3 to 6, 7 feet of depth depending on how fast you're trolling. And so then you'll need to adjust your depth counter to those. Once you get your weight to your desired depth, all you have to do to lock that back up is to bring that forward, wait till you hear the click, and that will tell you that it is now locked into place at that depth. Once that is done, you want to take your reel, close the bail on it, and then you want to start slowly reeling that in until you have good tension on your rod. You want that thing to kind of be bent over so that you get a good snap when a fish takes that line out of that clip. That's kind of the idea for how these work, is that line in the water, once a fish takes it and pulls it out of that clip, it will actually self-set the hook so that the fish doesn't come off. So you do want to have a fair amount of tension on that rod when you're trolling. And so you'll tighten that up till you get it to a point that you feel like is an appropriate tension. Everybody kind of has their own feel on that. I go super slow because I get really frustrated. If you go too fast and get too much tension on it, sometimes you'll self-pop it out of the hook, and then you got to start this process all over again, and no one wants to do that. So once you have the tension on it, then you're good to go. If a fish hits, it'll pull it out of the clip. All you have to do is take the rod and reel it in at that point. Reel this back up. To do that, all you have to do is spin the handle forward. It'll bring it all back up. Then you're ready to set it up again. I will say, if you get certain clips sometimes, or you get smaller fish that hit these, sometimes you'll just see that the pole starts to act funny, and it won't necessarily pop the line out, but you'll notice that it just doesn't look like it had the same action it did when you started trolling. A lot of times that's smaller fish that get on there, and so when that happens, you'll have to actually take this out of the holder, get it dislodged from the clip yourself, and then reel that in to check and see. Sometimes you just get hung up on seaweed, sometimes you got a little fish on there that just wasn't big enough to get that out of the clip. So keep that in mind as you're doing that. I think that covers most of the basics for how to use a Canon downrigger. If there's anything I missed, or if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. We would love to make sure we get that stuff right. We're kind of learning as we go, so we are just trying to share as much information on things we found helpful over the years as possible. So if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe this video. That helps us out a ton. You'll also be the first ones to know when new videos are coming out, teaching you more things about how to get more fish in the boat or caught on shore. Until next time, tight lines, cool cans. Cheers.